Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Euphoria podcast, available on Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, or Apple Podcasts, whatever you call the iTunes podcast platform, and SoundCloud. Before we begin, quick shout out to Naimura and Quick Shot for covering last week as I was ill. I had COVID. It sucked. I'm not going to lie. It was very mild symptoms, luckily, but definitely not fun to miss out on casting with my boy, none other than Caedrel. Wonderful to have you here. I guess I'm the one coming in, so I should say wonderful to be here with you. You're always here.
I think you should do the whole podcast alone. I can listen to that voice all day, baby. Oh my God. I don't know what happened ever since COVID, but your voice, it's just soothing my ears right now.
No problem. It's a little deeper. We're still recovering. Obviously, I'm the one who came out and said, hey, I'm fine to be here. I want to do this podcast today. No one would push me to do anything while I was sick. So I do feel good. And it's good to be back. But my question for you is, as difficult as it was for me to lay on the couch with my mild symptoms and watch League of Legends streams and talk shit in your Twitch chat, you did a birthday subathon for like 6 days straight, into casting 2 back-to-back best of fives, into then co-streaming again. Do you sleep, Mark Lamont? That is my question for you. Do you ever, are you okay, my dude? Because I'm sick, so everyone's like, are you good, buddy? Are you doing all right?
Yeah, maybe the subathon idea was a bit stupid before playoffs. Now that I think about it, maybe after something like MSI would be a good idea when I had like 3 weeks break. But I woke up on, when did I turn the stream off? I think it was like Thursday night. I was like, guys, I am so out of it and I have to cast tomorrow. So then I ended the stream. I got some good sleep though. So then I woke up, popped off. But then the funny thing about turning the stream off was I then streamed the next morning anyway, because I was co-streaming the LCK. Dude, I got to cover all the leagues. Trust me, when we get to Worlds, I'm going to spit straight fire about all these regions. I'm going to say,
and Pipple, baby, Mr. Worldwide.
It's in spring week 3 of the LCK. This is what happened. And now you fast forward to the World Championship in the semifinals. They're running it back again. Dude, I'm going to have some of those spits out. Straight fire.
It's going to be great. I'm going to love the knowledge bombs. Twitch chat will spam who asked. It'll be a good time. Yeah. As a side note, the Excel bet is still ongoing. I do still owe a song that I have to perform. For context, the instrumental is written, but as you can imagine, it's difficult to record vocals when you have COVID. So it's a bit delayed because we also want to put a tiny, not to like overhype it, but we're going to put a tiny bit more video production behind it. So it is coming. The Excel bet will be resolved. It may even include a special appearance from members of Excel in multiple capacities. There might be a piano solo.
It's going to be
a guitar solo. It's actually going to be hot garbage. I'm not going to lie to anyone. It's going to be hot garbage. Like, let's not over.
Make people are going to be like sick though.
Well, we didn't do a reckless, like we haven't had like a big musical piece since Wildfire. So I don't want people to think this is like a big musical thing because I made it in my house and I literally Googled generic pop song chord progression. So it's going to slap. It's going to be a great meme, but like, I'm afraid of hyping people up because LEC music pieces have such a high standard, and I'm like, guys, I'm making this in my house. Like
it would have been sick if it came out before Excel played their first playoffs game, and then as they walk onto the stage in the LEC, it plays like their WWE stars coming out on the stage, and it's their walk-in song. You know, each team has a walk-in song. That would be Excel's.
Yeah, that would have been the dream. That was the planned timing. But COVID happens. Life goes on. Anyway, speaking of Excel, sadly, we could have also considered doing it this week, but they are dead now. Long live Excel. Rip. Goodbye, Excel. So let's talk a little bit. It was a kind of a, I would say mostly the weekend went as expected. I would say that how we got there was sometimes a little bit surprising, but overall, expected results, not exactly the expected path to getting there. And I think this was definitely true in the Excel versus Vitality series. I know Excel were confident coming into it, but full 5 games. Obviously, this is where the spoilers begin. So, tune out if you haven't watched the series. But Vitality, it was a very bizarre series. Like, what was your read on the series? You weren't working this day either. So both of us just got to watch this, sit back as kind of spectators and see it. What was your read on the series?
It was weird from a draft perspective because all of a sudden when you get to like game 4, the most OP champs in the whole series are Corki Volibear, which is really weird for best of 5 in the current meta. Like after Nukeduck, I think Nukeduck played one game of Volibear, one game of Corki in game 3 and popped the hell off. And then I think by game 4, Perks was saying, this thing is so broken. So they early rotate Corki, Volibear. And then in the game 5, XL realized Corki's OP. and they ban Volibear and they first pick it, but then Vitality have a plan. The weird thing to me again as well is like Selfmade is so good on Olaf, which is not a very meta pick either, but that's being picked into XL, and it wasn't even like the greatest of matchups. I mean, he's playing like one game against Xin, which is okay, one game against Volibear, which is fine, but they have a zillion, so it's kind of annoying. So I don't know if it's just like a classic Selfmade comfort pick, but I think Perks had in like an interview after their game where he said Selfmade is just really insane at the off-meta junglers. And when I think of Selfmade, I think of like Kiana, Olaf, Kindred, Talon,
I mean, he was the Zed guy. Yeah, he was the Zed guy really before Zed even took off. And obviously in solo queue, not really on stage. But I like the spice. And I thought that like he just looked like an absolute monster on the pick. And it's another one of those champions that I think makes Renata feel even more oppressive. Because obviously just like Olaf's already such a pain in the ass to deal with. You know what I mean? Like when he runs at your backline. And that Renata pairing felt super good earlier on. But the other weird thing was like, not only was draft prio weird, but Excel's drafts, especially game 5, and I don't want to like be a draft Andy where you're just like, oh, draft better, but like
hindsight,
like,
Andy, we should have picked this.
Hindsight. But they just straight up like, Olaf was there, and they're like, Mordekaiser. And one of the reasons I love Mord is because you can just ult a jungler out of the pit when you're taking a Baron. And to be fair, they did end up doing this. They just didn't have enough damage to kill the Baron in the meantime. But it's just like, Olaf just ults your ult, and then you just don't do anything. And it's like, I really like Mord ult. I think it's great. I think he's like Darius with a better ult and admittedly a worse passive. But like this just did not make sense to me. And similarly, like didn't build a big enough lead in lane that it really felt like a very high impact pick at all.
I think what I saw in XL's logic is they had a Caitlyn Lux and they needed to play for bot, right? And they had a jungler that needs to play for bot, and they need to pick a top laner that will do well into Camille, outscale it, but can play weak side. And the answer that came to their head is Mordekaiser, because he can't get dove, he can play weak side, clear waves, and he'll outscale Camille. This was their logic, but their logic fell apart when Marcoon never really went bot side. The Caitlyn Lux like dies to enemy jungle ganks, gets pushed in, and then now both your sides are losing because also Mordekaiser got killed to an early gank too. So I think it was a bit risky. Their Caitlyn Lux pick in game 5, it was confident, it was ballsy, but you need to play really well around bot. Like, T1 bot lanes are, LCK bot lane in general, T1 bot lane, if they pick something like Caitlyn Lux, you're absolutely getting blasted. I think someone said in an interview afterwards from Vitality, is like, if I see Caitlyn Lux on the enemy team or some kind of Jinx Karma or Ezreal Karma, and they're not an LCK bot lane, I think we're going to win the game by default, because like Western teams just don't know how to pull it off. So it was... Yeah, it's a lane where if you play perfectly, you push, you trade properly, you base properly, your jungle plays around it great, then you're always going to win. But if you screw up once, it's forever doomed, and that's kind of what happened in that game. So that was kind of unlucky from the XL bot lane, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's the thing that makes it also really difficult is it's not just your lane. Because in that game, it was like they lost mid jungle prio, and then bot lane got lost because of it. Like even if like, and I'm not saying that they played the trades great or that they like absolutely smashed lane. I don't know enough about the lane to say whether or not they like even executed well. But even if they were executing well, it's like Labrov got like one roam off mid or whatever, and then like the game was just over. Like they actually couldn't do anything. Like there's an Olaf on top of them, and it's absolutely completely and totally unplayable for them. So yeah, I mean like Rogue have pulled it off as well, but I was just surprised at how narrow the win conditions felt for XL in game 5. Like I see the theory behind all the picks. It just felt such a fragile comp. Like if anything went wrong, it was going to go really wrong. And even in the early lane phase, yes, Finn, like building up that CS lead, Alphari going early QSS is like absolutely the right choice for him, because then I think they actually do potentially have dive threat on Mordekaiser because he can't death realm either the Olaf or the Camille. But like you felt like, oh, he's got an advantage there, and ultimately it's just none of their small advantages here or there really mattered, and it just fell apart so quickly.
Yeah, I think a couple things that really surprised me from this series. Number one was Nuktak played, I think, really well this series. Game 5 was a bit difficult for him with the mid-jungle matchup, but like his games were fantastic. Like he picked, Lissandra pick was great. His Rise, even in their loss, was good. The Corki carried them in game 3. The Kai'Sa was really strong at a point in game 4, but he could never really find it because the rest of the map was falling apart. But yeah, I think Nuktak actually impressed me this series. The other surprise I had was like the top gap after game 1 was ridiculous. Like Finn's game 1 was good because Marcoon covered him on a Irelia stack wave and they won the 2v2 early. But after that, it just felt like top lane was a montage for Alphari. There was a lot of blunders by Finn as well. Like game 2 when he's playing Tryndamere, he doesn't use his ult in a tier 2 dive, dies, and then gives up a kill, which was really frustrating for Marcoon, I can imagine. The Gnar GP matchup, the Jax from Alphari was at a point of outscaling, but luckily, the Corki was so fed. I mean, I think this was a series that actually showcases the power Alphari can have over some of the EU top laners. Whether it will continue, I'm not sure. But it was definitely a good series by the top jungle of Vitality, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, the amount of pressure that he absorbed across so many games. And obviously, the game where he plays Gnar into GP, he just blasts GP, right? Like, he just gets a solo kill. He's just absolutely bodying Finn. That game is just like turbo dunzo. But even the game where he was falling behind his Gnar, when he was actually dying a bunch early game, he absorbed so much pressure. Yes, Finn did not push ult. And like, I don't know if like Alphari has this aura where people turn their brains off, but like Excel, I have never seen a team grief more ganking a single player. And obviously I want to give Alphari the credit for outplaying these ganks, but like there's the Tryndamere ult, there's the top lane play where they like try to burn everything getting into him, and then like meanwhile like Zeri's murdering their AD carry, like Mickey's getting run down, and it's just like every time they try to gank Alphari, and this is not like this correlation causation thing. It's not like Alphari's out here just like mind controlling them into doing like dumb stuff, but like it always fell apart. Like even if they did kill Alphari, there's the game where LeBron was playing Tom Kench and they like go bottom and they're desperate like to kill him, and they kill LeBron, but they don't kill Alphari. Marcoon tries to dive Alphari and dies. It's like Marcoon spent his entire series just trying to kill Alphari, and just every time he did, it went so incredibly wrong. And I think to me, that's why, like, if I have to give an MVP for this series and this team, and for context, I think we're just going to do one MVP per week in playoffs. But if I had to give an MVP for Vitality, I think it is Alphari, because the amount, even if some of this is Excel just sprinting it into him, I don't care. Like the way past that Aurelia game, Alphari was an absolute monster, always doing well. Yes, the Jax game, we didn't get to see it as much, but every other game, it was like he absorbed everything, dude. Every gank, like I was stunned. Like the amount of it was actually just so fantastic.
Yeah, I think Alphari self-made are definitely in the pool. I would lean a bit towards Alphari as well. I mean, game 1 I think was just poor by both of them, because the thing is you're playing GP Lee Sin into Aurelia and you both die. I think it was both of them die, or like they lost double buffs or whatever happened, like level 4. So top junglers immediately lost. But the series overall actually delivered a lot. A lot of people thought XL was going to win, and even though they were 2-1 up, Vitality still managed to come back with like dominant games, it felt like. But yeah, Vitality just outclassed them, I think, a bit in the long term, in the long run of the best of 5. I think we had this discussion on Euphoria last week, where Nymira said if it was straight after the last game on Sunday, we had playoffs on a Wednesday, 3 days later, then XL would probably win. I would agree as well. Yeah, I said if it was just a 3-day break, I think XL probably would take the series because of the recency of form. But yeah, with a 3-week break, I think it's helped Vitality a little bit. I don't think they're a Fnatic Rogue level yet. But I think what this team needs is time on stage and time in competitive games. 5 games is great. Next, they face G2, which is a bloody tough task, I think. But if they do win that series, I expect this team could make a miracle-ish run to maybe a loser's bracket final or a final. But yeah, I think that series is already looking like a banger to me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think just like across the board, there's a lot of people with really good moments. I thought the team fought better than Excel in a lot of circumstances outside of the Corki game, which obviously just very hard to find. No, Corki does a shitload of damage. I was impressed. I will say that I think, like you pointed out, I think Vitality ramped up over the series, and I want to see what they can do with another week under their belt. Because I do feel like they also made a lot of mistakes, and it just feels like that volatility that we got used to seeing with Vitality in the regular season is still there, and they're still just as clutch as ever too. And I'd say Alphari was a shining beacon of consistency, and Karzi's Aphelios is super cracked. I feel like this is a team where every single player is very good, which is not true, and has been performing pretty well, which is not true for every team, but they've also all had, 1 or 2 it moments. And I think that's when you look at a team like G2, less misfits. When you look at a team like Fnatic or Rogue, if that's, the rematch that they have to go through if they want to make it to finals, that's like, you really need that consistency, you know what I mean? Or you need to be able to fight your way back, which they couldn't always do against Excel, and I think will only be harder against teams like Rogue, Fnatic, G2.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the last thing I want to say on this matchup is Labrov was running it the first game. Like, it was really tough to see. I was looking at social media or like live threads, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, Labrov is so boosted." But he had a couple happy games. In their losses, of course, he was hinting, but I think in their wins, he was doing pretty a lot to facilitate the team. I think this was a good series for him specifically to like find his groove in Vitality, find his groove in the best of fives, and find his groove in like where he fits in and how his stage performance is. Because of course all the playoffs will be on stage, and I think if anyone needs that experience alongside these veterans, it's probably Labrov. Because we've always been promised this next best support in EU, like EU carrier, but haven't seen it yet. But this series is a good stepping stone for him as well.
I agree. I think he hasn't hit those high highs, but the Tahm Kench game was really good. Game 4 was really solid as well. You know what I mean? And it's yeah. We'll have to see. I think you're right. I don't want to overstate it.
If you look at the solo queue ladder right now, rank 1 is Labrov by a mile. Like, you talk about like the Magi Felixes of the world who's pushing 2k LP. My man Labrov is 100 LP above Magi Felix. He's sitting at almost 1900 LP. Like, as a support, the next support is like rank, I don't know where the hell, but this guy is like, he obviously has the mechanics. Like, he is dominating solo queue for 2 years, rank 1, rank 2, whatever it is. It's just, hasn't been on stage yet.
Oh yeah, I think there's glimmers of it, and I think really solid moments. I think the good news is it's not just this thresh that we talk about anymore. We know he can play anything. We know it's there. Sadly, it's still that double-edged sword, and we see this a lot with high-end supports. You know, like, this is obviously something we talk about with Hylissang, and probably will continue to talk about with Hylissang if you saw the game in that series where he absolutely sprinted it. But until you have that level of pedigree and that level of consistency that we know you're going to show up, it's still hard to bet on Labrov at this point. And I think that's fine. I think he's growing, like you said. I think this is a good opportunity to start it. But shifting our attention, Fnatic versus G2 and other series. This was a very contested, very fight-heavy series. Sometimes teams just I felt like fighting for no reason. But overall, I think my big takeaway when we look at this series holistically is, one, Renata is disgusting and should be banned forever. This champion is ludicrous, in my opinion. And similarly, I think Fnatic are just a significantly better team fighting team than G2 right now. And I think that was the big thing that I saw in that series that really carried them home. Like, they fight like 5 players together as one. Whereas like you saw G2 and they were like, I don't know how you felt. I felt like they were super all over the place in a lot of those fights.
Yeah, it's really felt like it was one dragon fight, or a couple of these games felt like one dragon fight and then the game is over and done and dusted. I think that Fnatic was outplaying them a little bit in this series in raw fights, but I think maybe, I don't know if this is just a different take or a base take or whatever, but I think G2 was way more prepared in this best of 5 in terms of like what they want to play and how they want to play. Like, the first game, they're already picking like Lissandra into LeBlanc, picking Yone top. The second game, they have their Karma Hecarim comp, which it looks like they've been practicing with. And I feel like they had a lot of strategies prepared, but Fnatic was just slapping their strategies back in their face. And they just stuck to what was working. You know, if LeBlanc's open, we pick LeBlanc. If Viego's open, we're picking Viego, you know. If we can get Zeri, we're probably going to go Zeri Renata or just go for a 200-year spot lane. And, I mean, Fnatic really didn't have to show much, it felt like. They weren't really pushed to a limit of, like, picking odd champions or different meta champions or showing things like this Karma Hecarim strat or whatever it may be. They just kind of picked standard stuff and they just won games, you know. We just pick an Ornn, we pick a LeBlanc every time it's open, we pick Camille or Jace, top or Gnar. And I mean, it was working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. This team just looks insane across the board. Like, there was no huge weakness. You can, like, if you just ignore game 2, which I think Hilly was mercilessly inting ever since I saw the level 3 bot dive where like enemy jungle's there and he just hooks in with no regrets and he doesn't give a single, you know, and he's like, guys, I'm going in here. Yeah, that was merciless, that game from Hilly, but yeah.
Yeah, that was the game I was talking about earlier. Like, Hylissang is, and I think we've talked about this, still one of, if not, you know, the best player in the West. He's incredible. He's out of this world when he's playing well. That doesn't mean he doesn't still have a Hylissang game every now and then. And there was your Hylissang game. Mm-hmm. Hopefully the only one for playoffs if you're a Fnatic fan, but wouldn't be surprised to see another. That one was...
It's one of those moments where it's like, so Hilly's been playing pretty well recently and he's like consistent. Oh, there we go. There's the Hilly we know, you know, like he always brings it back.
It's like it's for branding. It's like and I know he's not attached to this brand, but like I just imagine someone at Fnatic being like, "Hilly, look, people really love the coin flip brand, so we're just going to need you to sprint it this one game." Like, I understand there's a jungle vision there, and this is objectively inting, but if you could just one time for the brand, just do something catastrophically stupid, that would just really keep
no,
the
it's in his
going,
contract.
You know?
It's like you have to have one int game per split so we can make memes of it and keep up the branding. And it's like, okay, well, you haven't had it yet. Well, we may as well have it in first round of playoffs. You know, like you've been stretching it out all this time, you haven't pulled it off. And it's like, okay, I'll do it now. You know, just gives him a solid okay, and then walks on stage, locks it in.
That one's for the brand. There you go. It's all branding. That's gonna be the new meme if we cast a Hylissang game. I agree though on the preparation side.
It's a branding diff.
Branding. Oh, that one's for the branding. One time for Hilly.
Oh my god.
I agree, especially on the Karma Hecarim. I love the Karma Hecarim combo. I like it as an answer into LeBlanc. And specifically just like feels like it really enables Flakked to succeed as well. That felt like just good drafting. Just like honestly good drafting, good planning. But where I like go against you a little bit is it's just like they had infinite answers seemingly to the LeBlanc, and just like, and you kind of highlighted this already, but like most of them didn't work, dude. Like the Ahri didn't really do much. The Lysandra was okay early. Humanoid obviously had a big leading lane advantage, and I think that was a problem for G2 in the sense that like Caps eventually overcomes, right? And I think you talked about this in Cast, but with Aftershock, with Q early on, like he's not out pushing the LeBlanc, and Humanoid and Razork and Hylissang as well were able to just do a lot in the space before the counter pick, let's say, really came online. And that made things super, super difficult. And I'm wondering, because you said it, if we have seen what Fnatic has prepared, or if, like you said, they're not pushed to show anything, and there's like another secret layer that we're not going to see until they play against Rogue. Because I do think that while this was a close series in many moments, Fnatic did beat the hell out of G2 overall.
Yeah. I feel like Fnatic didn't show much because of how they had to play the game. Like, so for example, like if you just look at their solo lane drafts, because I think solo lane drafts dictate how you play the game, because jungle support AD will always kind of do a similar job unless you're playing some psycho jungle like Kha'Zix or Nocturne. You look at Wonders champs, he's playing, barring the Aura game, he's playing things like Gnar or Jace or Camille. These are champs who will go side lane. And Humanoid is playing 4 games of LeBlanc, right? So most of their comps were like a 1-3-1 where LeBlanc will go side lane. And that's how they controlled the game. But because you're playing LeBlanc every game, that's how you play the game every game. And they just didn't change it. They just push out sides, collapse on team fights, TP in time and be there. They didn't play things like Azir or Zoe or Orianna, where it's like, you have one person pushing side, you have to go 4-man mid and then go through mid. Like, they didn't really show us much of like a playstyle difference. They just stuck to what was working. So I'm sure they can play these styles. We saw it in the regular season, but the fact that they just kept giving them LeBlanc, they obviously think this is their best strat and they're just going to stick to it. Whether it was like a LeBlanc denial from Caps or it's just Humanoid thinks it's OP, it worked. And G2 had answers, like Lysandra is a good answer into LeBlanc. Karma Hecarim is a good answer. Like, some of the answers were not bad. For me, I think the couple things I noticed in the series was, one, Flakked was playing 4 games of Aphelios, and he, even in the games that they were winning, I feel like he was making a lot of mispositioning mistakes. The Karma Hecarim one is like notably one where he would get caught a couple times before fights, or like he would have to burn everything, and luckily they would go 1-for-1, or luckily they'd overuse everything to dive on him. But Flakked was a bit shaky for me in this series. And the second thing I noticed was Jankos was a bit invisible a lot of the time. And I think that I would love to pick his brain on it, because as a jungler myself, if I'm playing Lee Sin and I have a top matchup where Yone is getting pushed in, I have a mid matchup where Lissandra's under tower, my Nautilus Aphelios are struggling in lane versus Zeri Renata, I have 3 lanes being pushed in, all I can do is play make. That's fine if I make plays, but if I don't, the game's over. Or alternatively, I could have push with very little playmaking and then play the game that way. And when all of his lanes were pushed in, he couldn't really find much on the Lee Sin games. And when his lanes were pushing, then he looked a little bit more comfortable on like Hecarim and stuff, where he could roam around the map a bit. So I'm sure there's a lot to take away from this game from G2 and from Jankos, from like how he wants his team to play the lane phase so he can do things. Because he looked so like he really couldn't play the game in the first Lee Sin game and the second one.
Well, and especially in that first Lee Sin game, and I wonder if that's why we saw G2 and Broken Blade stay away from some of his weirder picks. I don't want to devalue Broken Blade's like fringy counter picks. I think that they're cool and I like watching them. But like they, in the context of Yone, and I think a lot of the picks that like I want when I see that counter pick, I want him to be winning lane. You know what I mean? Like if your counter pick loses early, I'm so underwhelmed. You know what I mean? Unless it like really hard smashes late. Like I think Jax is a good example, of a champion who can lose lane early to Camille or who can like go even early against Camille and then like outscale. It's just really underwhelming. Because you're right, he loses that pressure and there's literally nowhere for Jankos to play. And that's kind of why I think he just started going Gnar, right? He's like got a positive matchup, can push, can trade fine early on. And I think that just does so much more to enable the team. I don't know how deep the champion pool goes. We've talked to him. Like we know it goes pretty deep. I don't know what else is in the tank. But that's one of the things that I would like to see more of is like, we know G2 want to play generally away from bot side. So top side really needs to have lanes that are winning or can be set up for success to me. Because otherwise it just feels so impossible for Jankos to do anything early game.
Yeah, and I think giving Caps a bit more, I want to say playmaking, but it's giving him a bit more push in the lane. Like the problem is he's against LeBlanc 4 games in a row. Like how is he supposed to out-trade him? And you can't really... The thing is, if you think of old school G2, Caps and Jankos specifically, the way they would play the game is Mickey would come from bot side, Jankos would come from top side, they gank mid, get his flash, force him on a tower, get a kill, get a plate, and then Caps is unlocked on the map. How do you really do that against LeBlanc? It's like the most mobile mid in the game. Jankos can't really default to things like Xin or Jarvan or things that maybe he would have been playing throughout the regular season because his champ just doesn't work against LeBlanc. The only champ that does kind of work is Lee Sin. But his Lee Sin, this split is like 2 out of 5 games. It's not really looking great, his Lee Sin on stage. So banning LeBlanc would open up Jankos so much more to things like Jarvan and Xin Zhao. I think Poppy could have also been a really good pick for them. But there wasn't really champs for Jankos to really impact mid or help Caps, it felt like.
Yeah, Lee Sin has also just abysmal stats so far this playoffs. He's like 1-4, and I've been underwhelmed. Like I'll be honest, if I get to pick every time and I'm playing in these games as not a jungler, what my jungler plays, I'm picking Volibear and Jarvan every time. Like maybe the occasional Trundle, maybe the occasional Olaf if self-made is my jungler, but like these champions feel so consistently impactful in a way that like I think jungle is at its best right now, outside of like the turbo-fed Viego games, when you're just spam ganking early or team fight playmaking. And I think it's doubled by the fact that like the build path right now that we saw Malrang use in the next series we're going to talk about, where you just like get Azanias, is just so friggin' good, dude. That item is so... I've talked about this before. I think Zhonya's is one of the most broken items in the game. Like conceptually, like if you're a bad team fighting team and an enemy tank uses Zhonya's, your comms go to shit instantly. Like I've heard chats, they're instantly like, they burn a bunch of cooldowns on a Volibear because they think they can one-shot him and suddenly they don't have any cooldowns, suddenly there's any carry on top of them. Like Zhonya's is disgustingly powerful. And so just in general, like I know that Lee Sin is viable. I know you as a jungler are going to have a lot more nuanced opinion on this. I know it's not that black and white, but to me, from an outside perspective, it looks that black and white. Both those champions look so good. Viego looks all right sometimes when he's getting ahead, but those champions just feel, in a vacuum at least, like the strongest junglers right now.
Yeah, when you first said that, I was like, well, the one person who would agree with you there is Malrang. My man is like... I will say he's hinting a bit sometimes with these Jarvan picks. Like if you have like R4, R5 for jungle, and they have Lee Sin, Camille, LeBlanc, Rakan, and you pick Jarvan, then you're obviously like, I don't know, this is self-inflicting int. Like you're definitely, you need an emergency meeting. This guy's being sus as hell. Like this Jarvan pick was disgustingly bad, but still, the other games it was fine. I mean, they won in 20 minutes, they lose in 20 minutes, works either way. But then you're right, like imagine the enemy jungler, Jarvan, has Zhonya's, a second stopwatch, and a Guardian Angel. And you're like, guys, it doesn't matter how many health points he has. He's going to be in my face for at least 10 seconds no matter what. So, I mean, he can early dive, early mid ganks. The Volibear does the same kind of thing. And yeah, you know what was banned a lot of the time in their series when they were playing things like Jarvan? LeBlanc. So there's not that much of an issue when he tries to gank mid or help Larson, right? So, I really think this way of playing was pretty good. Maybe Misfits could have... Maybe Misfits could have early rotated LeBlanc a little bit themselves because it was always banned on like 4-5, if I remember correctly. Maybe once it was on the early rotation, but it was always LeBlanc bans on 4-5. Maybe if they prioritized VTO a bit more there, that would have helped them. At least help him unlock the map a bit more and have pressure onto Malrang. But yeah, Malrang seems to be convinced that there's only 2 junglers and it's Volibear Jarvan, and there's only 1 rune and it's First Strike.
I don't really know about First Strike. I'm sure there's some math there. I don't really care. You know, like ultimately,
you can look
like
at
I'm
his
like,
solo queue account. He's playing first strike on every champion under the sun, no matter what.
Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. But when you're playing Volibear and like Jarvan, I don't really care what rune you take. Like you do the same shit. Like I don't care. Like Marcoon took Phase Rush, he took Press the Attack. Like it doesn't matter to me. I like could care less. I guess the logic is you get your one combo off.
Yeah, the funniest thing was he would like dive bot, run up to the enemy AD carry, hit him with auto attack, get his first strike and EQ away, and then just run. And then like that's it. He would just walk in, hit them and EQ out, and just run away and get his gold. And then he would base. Like this guy was playing like such a psychopath. It was so fun to watch.
Yeah, honestly, I loved it. I think Caedrel. There's two things that this series is hard to talk about. I'm gonna be honest, because there's two things that I think, and neither of them are very positive. And one is that I don't feel like Rogue have really been tested yet. And I feel bad saying that because I feel like we're literally always saying that about Rogue. But I feel like Misfits did not do great this series, right? And I just feel like watching the series, it feels to me like Misfits is doomed, dude. I feel like VTO did so much work to bring them to playoffs. I feel like Neon stepped up a lot, but like Mursa struggled this series. Playoffs here that we saw last season against Rogue in the first round, this exact same best of 5, did not exist. Odoamne blasted Hira, just absolutely blasted Hira.
Yeah, it was a murder in the top lane.
Yeah, I don't know what's like. I don't know what your read is on this series, but I'm sad about the series because I'm pretty convinced Misfits are dead in the water, and I'm pretty convinced that I cannot use most of this series to get a good read on Rogue. Like definitely not any more than I did in the regular season, and that's annoying to me. I don't know how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, it just felt like they were outlaning them and they were drafting for it too. Like you look at game 1, you had the Rumble Ignite into Gnar, he got solo killed. You were playing Lucian mid into Zoe, unlaneable. There's a Caitlyn Lux pushing in my bot lane of Zeri Leona. They can't fight 3v3 ever. So that game already from a draft standpoint, you have 3 lanes pushing in and they have a Jarvan who's basically giving up every camp. Sure. You move on to the next game again, you have like Jason to Camille, like he's getting pushed in. And although it worked in like, I think it was game 3 or something when Hirit got the solo kill and VTO finally did pick a LeBlanc where it was actually good into their Jarvan. Rogue just had too many answers to Misfits' plays. Like if you watch a couple of these games, even game 1, for example, Misfits are the ones making plays in the first like 10 minutes of the game, or was it game 2? I don't know. Misfits was always forcing plays. Zlatan was the one looking for plays, and Malrang was in every single bush, in every single lane that Zlatan tried to gank, or he was behind the lane no matter what. He had his map hack on. He had a second screen of Zlatan's live stream of his jungle pathing with 0-second delay, and he would just right click in every direction that this man was going towards. He does a full clear to top and backtracks back to bot. It's like a mirror on the side from Malrang. He's like, he sees everything. I feel like at this point, if you want to try to gank Rogue, or as much as I say gank, like ganking a competitive is hard because you need like the right wave states, good communication, the enemy team needs to screw up somehow. It's like if you want to gank or play a stack wave, I feel like you have to do the opposite of what is the correct play. You know, it sounds stupid, but if you have a stacking wave bot and it looks like a dive, just go top and gank him instead, or like do something weird, because Malrang is just going to look for the obvious play and he's always just going to answer it no matter what, and he'll give up creeps doing or give up camps just to make sure he's there to wave at you and push you away. So yeah, I think Malrang, was he exposed this series? No. He has a way deeper champ pool than just Jarvan Volibear. He has a very clear way of how he wants to play the game if you give him the options of just like early game jungle, match every play, get his winning lanes ahead, let his pushing lanes get leads without getting ganked, and then let them carry him, and he'll just do his stopwatch, his shenanigans. But he has way more playstyles, so yeah, I feel like Rogue wasn't really pushed much either. So that's why I think Rogue Fnatic will be exciting, because both teams just, one team picks winning lanes and Jarvan, other team picks LeBlanc. As much as it's very sounds very simplified and dumbed down as I say that, but that's kind of what happened, right?
But look, I think the simple sometimes is the best. Or at least start at the simple, give people the big picture. I would love to know your thought. Watching these games, it felt to me like I would say like Rogue were definitely the favorites, but I feel like both Zlatan and Mursa, and I can't tell how much these things are connected together, because obviously jungle and support are very reliant on each other early, and they do a lot of, like, when they do things well, they usually do them together. But it just felt like Mursa had a lot of just objectively like bad moments, like a lot of bad W's forward. He had that one Rakan game, just like Zlatan had that one Hylissang game where they're both able to like get it together and like do a lot of work. But for the most part, it just felt like both these guys really struggled to show up in the series. And I'm wondering how much of that is they were like outclassed, or how much of, or I'm wondering if, and this is such an intangible thing, I know, but like, is there like a nerves factor going on here? Because to me, this was even though it was the VTO show in the regular season, it felt uncharacteristically rough or bad. It was bad. It felt uncharacteristically bad for both Zlatan and Mersa in this series. Like it was hard to watch sometimes.
I think the problem is for Misfits is like, if you take it in that point of view where we can only see from the outside, you're drafting like Hirit losing lanes every game because Jace into Camel, he's under his tower the whole game. The only winning matchup I think he had was game 4. VTO doesn't have anything he can make plays on alone. He's playing like Syndra mid. You have gank set up, you can help him, but you can't really get there. He's playing Akali, he's getting pushed in. So if both your solo lanes are getting pushed in and these are like your star players or playmakers, it is literally on your jungle support to do everything. And only one game they managed to find anything. Even in that Lee Sin Nautilus game, was it, or something, or Lee Sin Rakan, even when they were ahead, they went too deep into Rogue's jungle, almost like through the game. Even though Misfits still won the game quite handily, there were still signs of like errors and mistakes when their team was pushing sides. So yeah, Misfits mid support jungle was never really in it. And I think the biggest problem they had was they always fell behind in the first 15 minutes. And when you fall behind as jungle support, it's even harder to find openings and windows because they're always ahead in tempo. They always have vision in your jungle. You always have to be really creative. So yeah, props to Rogue. They just dominated early games. Even if they didn't have to do anything, they dominated early games. I feel like Fnatic Rogue is going to be like, I'm sure LeBlanc is banned by Rogue, and I'm sure Fnatic is focusing on jungle matchup. And that's when I think that we'll see the next level of the teams, right? Where it's like what they want to play instead.
Yeah. As a final note there, I'll just say that like if VTO's on Syndra, I think Misfits have lost the game. If we want the VTO show back, I don't know how you achieve it in draft. It's hard, but I think it's something that they can work on. Gank mid, strong jungle mid duo, go mid every game. Yes, it's predictable.
Level 2, level 3.
I think it's your only hope. That said, we'll see who they're going to be facing later in the week. For now, to get more thoughts on this series and on the series he'll be playing this weekend, we will be joined by none other than Rogue's Trymbi, legendary Lux player, legendary range support enthusiast. Let's see what he has to say. There he is, man of the moment. Welcome, Trymbi, to the podcast. I have 2 questions before we get into the work portion of the show. 1, how are you feeling? And 2, do you want a nickname?
Okay. Oh, wait, what? I don't understand the second question, actually.
What?
Okay. I did not.
I realize we had... Yeah, so here's the problem, right? Is we've given Larson like 30 nicknames. Odawamne has at least 4, other than just calling him a boomer.
Okay.
Malrang doesn't have a nickname yet. We should probably think of one. And Comp we've also left behind. But like you're here on the show.
Yeah.
And at this point we just like have been throwing out Rogue player nicknames like it's nothing. So I'm just curious, do you want a nickname? Do you have a nickname in mind? Like
that was kind of the issue that I had as well when I was back in like the primary school and the secondary school. Like my friends really wanted to like help me get a nickname, and they just couldn't. Like everyone else had a nickname. I was just out there. That's actually kind of how I got my current like nickname, the Trymbi one. Because like they were trying to like make something out of my last name and everything, and everything felt so bad, but I just remembered Trymbi, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna use that one, right? And that's why always people just called me Adi, honestly, just because it's like a short version in Polish language, how you call like Adrian, and that was the easiest way to call me.
Does anyone in Rogue give you a nickname in like scrims or something? Because I know Odawamne just like looks to his right and screams, "Hey, Ginger."
Yeah, that's kind of how it looks like. Like, if I'm tilted as well, I'm just gonna say, "Ginger, what are you doing?" and stuff like this, right? Like, but I don't think I have necessarily any nickname. I think people, if they like, I think Odo and Larson are just like feel comfortable to just talk to me as Adi, and they just call me Adi, and that's actually kind of how everyone call like people that know me a bit better call me. But I don't know, like. It's very different. Like sometimes, like due to my nicknames that I had before, like I had back, I think in 2 years ago, I was playing on the account that I had the nickname Adi the Good Guy, and people started calling me at some point. Like people call me Trymbol. Like I think Upset calls me Trymbolini or Trymbol. I don't even know. Like it's so random. Like I think Hilly and Upset have like a they're calling me somehow, but I never remember. I remember because I know it's from Submit, because one time he called me like that in Salky, and I was shocked. I was like, what is happening? You know, like I didn't know what's happening. I don't know what was that, you know, like completely out of nowhere randomly. So I think you'll need to ask other teams as well, or at least the ones that actually thought about how to make a nickname out of me.
Dude, that was an awesome answer. Thank you. I was not ready for like the sheer amount of context that you were ready to give. Like this, I didn't realize there was such a loaded history. It's been going on since the elementary school days.
Yeah, it was pretty much like it. I mean, I like to go back to this because I never really think about it much. So yeah, it was really nice that you asked of it, so I can actually share.
It's funny talking about primary school and elementary school, because I went to school in Spain, and they have a very specific word for people who would grow up in Spain who are English, and it's called giri. It basically means foreigner. So every single time I would walk past the hallways, they'd be like, "Hey, giri." That was my nickname. Anyone who's Spanish will get the reference for sure.
Well, I mean, I was
nice,
to be honest, like out of context, I also was. I mean, I was living in Spain till I was 4 years old, and I was born there. So. I lived in I was going to the school in Spain, but I don't really remember much. I was just learning a bit Spanish, but I had Polish classes during the weekend. So yeah, I remember having friends in Spanish school, but nothing more than that. So people didn't
that's
really
sick. Where in Spain were you
like this. I was born in Madrid. That's where like my both parents were working as well.
Oh, nice.
Do you speak? I obviously speak Polish and English, but do you speak any Spanish now or any other languages?
I mean, the thing is, I used to know how to speak Spanish, but the thing is that also at the same time I was learning Polish, and even though I knew how to communicate in Spanish, and I was like actually pretty fluent in it when I was like 4 and 5 years old, I just forgot at some point, since I was not really like. I mean, my parents didn't really have time to help me out to get better and better at it. So I just when I was 14, I still knew quite a lot of Spanish, but then I just forgot because I didn't make use of it.
Wait.
Dude, we should have a Spanish Euphoria podcast. Instead of EUphoria, it's ESphoria for Españolphoria, and we'll just get people who speak Spanish, and Drakos can just like moderate it in Spanish. That would be so funny.
So here's through weird coincidence, Trymbi. I also so I was born in America, but my mom was a college student, and so when I was 4, I was in Oaxaca, and I also have been told that I spoke fluent Spanish. So both of us at age 4 knew another language, my dude. So when you talk about like losing it and you can't keep it, it's like I feel you. I'm still waiting. I don't know if you feel the same way, that I'm gonna like hit my head one day and just only Spanish. Spanish is just gonna come flooding back. I'm just gonna like have a concussion and I will lose English.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, it's really crazy. Yeah,
we're casting in Spanish, dude.
That would be the dream. Bro, that'd actually be fun. It'd be tough though, because you're like, play-by-play in a world where eBay exists. That's tough.
True. That's hard. That's rough.
Like that's rough. That's a tough task to challenge. Anyway, enough off-topic stuff. League of Legends. Trymbi, you had an interview that came out recently with Megalodontus talking a little bit about the series, but I would love to, and I'm going to ask you some of the same questions that came up there. For people who haven't read it, they should definitely check it out. But like, how did you feel, firstly, about Misfits as an opponent in this series? Did they come in at the level that you expect them to play at, or did they perform under your expectations? What did you think about their performance?
And the series overall felt like pretty whatever, I would say, in a sense that like I think Misfits is a good team, and I think they played quite well like at some points, but it was nothing out of ordinary, and we kind of knew what's gonna happen anyway, and I felt like they knew as well like how we play, but it just felt like we played better as a team as a whole, and overall individuals stepped up quite heavily in this series for us. So yeah, I felt like it was just the fact that we outperformed them like pretty much on every role, I would say. Even it's not even that they played bad or something. I think people just stepped up for the series, and that's kind of what happened. And the games went like this. Obviously, it was 3-1. I believe, the third game was pretty unlucky, I would say. And overall, the games were they were a bit shaky. Like some games were cleaner, some games were not that clean or quite messy. but I still believe we had the edge around all the time besides the third game when we actually made a lot of mistakes. I think we had an edge in all of the games, and I didn't really feel like they had a way of winning like other games.
Do you feel like you guys were really tested and pushed here when it comes to draft and preparation? Because from an outside perspective, you're talking about this hey, they played pretty well. We were just better. This looked ludicrously one-sided, this series as a whole. You're giving them credit, and I think we tried to give them credit too. In game 3, they found some opportunities, but this looked like an absolute stomp, and it didn't look hard for you guys. So I'm curious, how much did you guys feel pushed? How much of your preparation do you feel like you really had to show? And do you feel like fans got to see the highest level of Rogue performance in this series, or do you feel like there's more to be shown in the series that's coming up against Fnatic?
In terms of preparation, I don't think we had the cleanest read on the meta. I think before the series, I think we had a lot of good things that we knew about the meta and how to draft them specifically. But I think even Comp said in an interview about the Zeri situation, I don't know, this champ feels a bit awkward currently, and in the series and overall during that week, it felt like Zeri became much stronger than we thought, at least throughout the week. And it was 2-3 days before the actual series against Misfits when we were yeah, maybe you should actually pick up this champ. We didn't really care about this champ till middle of the week before the game. So that was, I feel even though we had these 3 weeks, I don't think it was that easy to prepare for overall as a draft concept, just because of the fact how many changes there were for different IDs and how it felt like it should actually matter for some, but at the end of the day, it felt like it didn't. That's how I would call it. And yeah, for now, we're still figuring out. I feel like this week is gonna be pretty messy in scrims, because there are people actually will try to find out counters for anything that came up huge for this week, and I hope it's gonna be quite interesting.
How do you feel about the 3-week break? Because I think a lot of teams feel differently about this 3-week break into playoffs. Some teams maybe got better. Some teams maybe found they got a bit worse, or they weren't really finding their pace, or they were in the wrong scrim bubbles. How does Rogue feel overall? Are you kind of in the middle of those two? Do you feel like the team just improved over 3 weeks? Is that what you needed?
I believe we do not need exactly 3 weeks. I think 2 weeks would be probably enough anyway, I think, because also there was a big break right after regular split. Most teams got 1 week of a break, so that's quite a huge one if you think about it, when you probably don't play as much League as you would normally. And also there was this patch that 12.5. Oh wait, yeah, I think it's 12.5B. This one, it was I think it was not known before the break itself that we will play on it. At least I believe so. I think there was in between the break, it was said that we're gonna play actually on this patch instead of the previous one. So it was also a bit you had to figure it out as well in solo queue instead of just instantly practicing with your team with around the changes and everything. And for us specifically, from my perspective, I think the 3-week break didn't really help us. It was more of a annoying thing than actually helpful thing. But it was more because of the problems that we bumped into. And I feel we just, it was, I think overall it was good that we bumped into them, so we could actually make use of the time to work on it. But it was for sure quite a stressful 3 weeks, at least from my perspective. I think there was a lot to improve on. There was a lot of stuff to figure out, and I felt we didn't really manage to solve a lot of it. So it was pretty stressful for the last couple of days before the match against Misfits, that I was not entirely sure how good we are. But I feel every team has this kind of feeling when it comes to playoffs. I feel every team would doubt a bit and see, and they would not be entirely sure how they're good in the meta, how good of the read they have, and overall if they will manage to showcase a good best of 5, good best of 5, and overall, in the different format, how it is in playoffs.
I just want to do one quick follow-up. I know we don't have that much time, but I saw this morning that the LCS is going to be playing their playoffs in 5 days on a patch that's released in 2 days. So that gives them 3 days to play on a new patch. Do you think that this, I mean, Riot's done this very often around playoffs, around patches, around international events. Do you think this rewards teams for creativity and working on the fly? Or does it hurt teams kind of like dissuading where their performance is on the different patches because they just haven't read it properly, so better teams tend to lose?
I think for them the playoffs will be more about which team is better at adaptation and how they're gonna manage to figure out the read. Either they'll figure out the meta during these 5 days, but I really doubt you're able to do it. So I think it will be a lot about how good they are, or like how good their the fundamentals are, and just about how they will be able to adapt during like series and overall playoffs in order to get the best read possible for like later games, if they obviously manage to win those first, right?
That's such an interesting situation, and definitely I can imagine a super difficult situation. But bringing it back, right now, I'm excited about your next match because I to be completely honest right now, depending on what Vitality, G2, Misfits obviously can show in the lower bracket, but right now, to the surprise of no one, you and Fnatic look like the two strongest teams at the moment. And I'm curious, what's your read on this series? And also, how does it feel to be going up against Hylissang? Like this is a guy that we have kind of put this like aura of untouchability around. We did also rag on him for inting for like 2 minutes straight before you came on the show. But he's obviously, like, to us, at least from an outside perspective, appears to be the big bad of Western supports or European supports, depending on how much of a fan you are of Core JJ. But like, how does it feel? How do you feel about this series, and how do you feel about playing against a player like Hylissang in a best of
5? In terms of series, I feel like a lot of people obviously underestimate us just because of how people think about Fnatic right now. I think they people tend to say that they're just the best, right? And no one is like close to them, or like, you know, it doesn't feel like there is anyone that can beat them and everything. Like I saw like even Gilius writing about the fact that if Vitality doesn't win, then there is no one else to like beat Fnatic and this stuff. And like, you know, it's understandable to think like this because obviously like Rogue is thought as a team that is not performing the best in playoffs and everything, but I really want to showcase in that series, or like at least I'll try to, and if not, then we will try to get it like in next series possibly, that we're able to probably beat anybody, like if we're actually gonna play well and we're gonna play with each other the way we always do. Don't feel like Fnatic is this kind of team that you just can't beat because they're like, I don't know, they're like insane. I do not believe that they're insane or anything. I think they're really good the way they showcase and what they play, but there's a lot of things that they're not good at, and people overestimate a lot of things they do, and that's kind of my vibe. Obviously, about Hilly, I think he's really insane, and this season he showcased that he's able to perform so much better than like in previous years, I feel like, or like at least you can see it more clearly, I would say, because before it was more about this little tricks and experience that he had about what to do with, like, I don't know, stopping bases, playing around specific timers, flanking, like this kind of stuff was pretty underestimated with the way Hilly played, and I felt like no one really cared, and people would mostly say that it's in him inting, even though he was doing a lot of stuff that was really smart and no one really pointed it out. But now I feel like he gets the praise that he should have got like before. So it's really nice to see it, I think. And obviously this series is gonna be about me being in his shadows, most likely. Like I'm just gonna probably chill there, and it's quite on the one hand it's pretty nice because I don't really feel any pressure around like playing against him. I feel like he's the one who has to showcase something. I can just chill, honestly, but it's not like I will. I really want to beat him. I really want to show that I'm able to do quite a lot, and I think I showed in the past that we're able to beat the Fnatic bot lane 2v2. Especially now, I feel like before it was like we would kill them a lot of times. I feel like there were a lot of incidents that happened during the laning phase first levels that they would like die randomly, but then they would get the help out of TPs and like jungler and everything. I feel like right now in the current meta, it's a bit harder to get it, and I feel like their bot lane was really heavily dependent on it. I don't say that now they're like worse or anything, but they played it with it so well that now I feel like sometimes they get lost with how to play it in some cases. So I just want to make sure that I'm able to perform pretty well. And I think that this year I'm doing a bit better during the laning phase and everything. So I would not like to jinx it, but yeah, I would like to kill them quite a bit in this series 2v2.
Respect.
Dude, I think you're very humble, and I think you're selling yourself short. And I think that like putting yourself on the same level with Hylissang is hard, and I don't think that that's what you're trying to do. But I do think you're using very soft language around your own performance. You're like, I'm doing a little bit better in the lane phase this year than I did last year. Like, I remember your first split. It wasn't the best split of all time. You had a lot of struggles, but you guys are crushing it now. And so I think like give yourself a bit more of a pat on the back. And I understand if you want to wait until the season is over, but like, bro, you're crushing it in a lot of these games.
The thing is that I don't like to like be cocky and everything, or like try to talk back to people and have a banter and everything until I actually not like achieve something, but actually win something, because I think I achieved quite a bit if you think about it from like a different perspective. But from my perspective currently, I haven't won anything, in like LEC. Like it's a fact. It's a matter of fact. Like I just didn't get the title. I don't know. I didn't like showcase insanely good AdWords and everything. Like it's something that I really wish to happen for me and for my teammates. I think I'm actually feeling more strong for my teammates like Larsen and Odo. I really want them to actually win. So I want to make sure I can help them out and make just help them out and try to make sure that they're actually gonna achieve something with me at least. So that's something that like I wish to do, and that's why I'm also like, I guess I'm this humble. I guess I'm not saying that if I want something I'm gonna shit talk at everybody. It's really not like this. Like I'm pretty humble as a person most of the times, and I like to banter. But when I'm not. It's pretty hard to banter when you know that you're gonna probably get shit talked back really hard about like the fact that you didn't want anything and it's pretty cruel, right? But that's kind of how it works. So yeah, it would be nice to win something so I can be a little bit more of myself as well.
Well, yeah, and it's not a private shit talk battle between you and Hylissang, right? It's like you talk crap on Hylissang and there's like 100,000 randoms.
Actually, yeah. I wouldn't really feel like shit talk Hilly, that's for sure. He's too kind. I mean, the thing that like when you hear about like how good of a teammate he is, like even if I wanted, I would not be able to like flame him or anything. It's just impossible. I feel like
Upset's less shy about talking trash often. Although he also, he's also, I think, a pretty respectful competitor. So maybe you can just like comp talk the trash, and you and Hylissang can be the humble boys. Either way,
true. Complex.
80s can do it off the rift. You guys can do it on the rift.
Tweets it. Yeah, true.
80s, yeah, need to be handheld through the laning phase by their supports, but absolutely unashamed to talk.
And then when they win lane, which is like
the opportunity,
when they win lane, which is like 80% support, they're like, I knew it, get shit on, It's like Trymbi or Hylissang are the ones to make the 2v2 kill happen, and then they're the ones to run away with it after the game.
It's always like this.
You need a hype man somewhere, and if that's got to be the 80 key, it's got to be the 80 carry. Trymbi, last thing before we let you go. I know you guys have probably got a pretty busy week of scrims ahead of you. Prediction for the bottom half of the bracket. G2 versus Vitality is happening on Friday. Misfits versus the winner of that is happening on Sunday. What's your prediction? Who will be facing the loser of your series versus Fnatic? G2, Vitality, Misfits. Who do you expect to be there?
It's the G2 Vitality series. I think is gonna be really close. I just have a feeling that this series is actually like, I don't know, it's just gonna define the loser bracket. I don't say that Misfits cannot beat any of those two teams, but I feel like those teams will just be prepared for Misfits if they're not gonna change too much, and they're just gonna beat them. So I think whoever is gonna win the G2 Vitality match will probably play versus the loser of our series, I would say. But I'd actually say it's Vitality. I just have a feeling that they're actually gonna they're just gonna showcase something. I don't know, just something better. I don't think G2 is bad or anything, but it's not really. It's very inconsistent the way they play, I think, and they're heavily relying on, I think, like just Jankos and Caps actually like making sure that the lanes are okay on the both sides. I feel like, and I don't think it's not like G2 lost because they didn't make it work. I think Jankos and Caps had overall like okay games. It's just like I felt like Fnatic was like so good on other lanes as well that it's just hard to impact on the map if you're not able to play like fully as a team in a good way. And that's kind of how I felt about the Fnatic G2 game series, even though I didn't really watch it fully, so I can't fully like speak of it. But yeah, I just have a feeling it's like this. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just I just feel like it's gonna be like this and Vitality will win.
Yeah, I appreciate the caveat. You're like, even though I didn't really watch 100%.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna give my opinion, even though like I didn't really fully watch it. But okay.
No, that's good. I appreciate your opinion nonetheless. Trymbi, thank you so much for joining us, dude. I appreciate you being humble. Cool to hear about your backstory, about the nicknames and your time in Spain. Nothing but the best of luck to you this weekend, man, versus Fnatic. That game's on Saturday, for anybody curious. Rogue versus Fnatic. I'm hyped. I expect we might see the same match in the finals. Obviously, depending on what Vitality and G2 and Misfits do. But I'm hyped for it. So thank you, Trymbi, for joining us. Good luck, dude. Good luck to you and the team. Call Odo a boomer for me one time. And we'll work on a nickname. We'll workshop it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Trymbi. Thanks again to Trymbi for coming on the show. Always good to get his insight. Obviously, very good dude. Very nice guy. That said, as nice as he is.
Maybe it's Good Guy Trymbi. Is that the nickname?
Good Guy Trymbi? Good Guy Trymbi's good. I kind of like the idea of just butchering his name every time. Like I kind of like when he said that like Upset called him like Trymbolini or whatever. I was like, we could just Trymbolowski.
Yeah, when he's playing Zach, he's called Trymbolini or something like trampoline. I don't know. Yeah.
Wait, yes, let's just change his name. Whatever. Yeah. Trymbolus.
Trumpet. I don't know.
Trumpet. Yeah, we'll figure it out. We're gonna if we cast a Trymbi game. I don't know what we're casting yet. We'll find out later today. So we'll know by the time this episode comes out. We can make up Trymbi nicknames on the fly. That could be the mini game. Anyway, we have 3 potentially exciting series. I think all of them are set up to be good. But I guess, where do you want to start, Caedrel? We can talk about Fnatic,
I don't know.
Rogue first. We can talk about the lower bracket first. What are you feeling?
I'm feeling actually, a little bit.
Wait, scratch that. We forgot MVP. One real quick MVP, because I think we're on the same page. MVP for round 1 playoffs. Who's it going to be, Caedrel?
My head, I'm thinking Malrang. I'm thinking Alphari. I'm thinking Malrang because he just does different, doesn't he? He's slamming his Jarvan Volibear. He's slamming his first strike. He's counter ganking you, your brother, your sister.
Yep.
Your great grandmother, like he's counter ganking everyone. So as a jungler, I'm a jungler. I love me some jungling, and mine's going to Malrang.
I agree. Second place is Alphari. Really big shout out to Alphari. That man absorbed so much pressure, outplayed so many Excel players, but he does it different. Odo Wamne also on the list for the record, slightly behind. I
feel like Humanoid's on it too, but it was 4 games of LeBlanc, but he was popping off.
Humanoid, it was always impactful. Humanoid, very good. Again, I think that, there's a lot of candidates. It turns out there's a lot of good players in our playoffs. But I'm inclined to agree this week on Malrang. Very high impact, very unique play style. Absolutely feel like without him, Rogue would be a very, very different team. He is the consistent clutch factor. I think Fnatic is still a very big team effort. Hylissang outside of, again, that game too, where he absolutely ran it. Very good. Humanoid, very good. Wonder, like, quiet subtle MVP, you could say, because he's just always just taking whatever, blind picking whatever. He's the guy who...
That's what I love about Wunder. He'll do any job you need, you know? Like, he is the flexible handyman. You need it, he's got it. He's got it in his closet.
Did you ever
like Champion Ocean.
Did you ever see the show Dirty Jobs on like Discovery Channel or whatever? It's just this guy just goes around and does like all the essential worker jobs that are like not fun, like trash truck driver, operator, sewer cleaner, you know, all the stuff that is just generally most people would consider like gross or not fun, like works in a butcher's house. And I feel like that's Wunder. Wunder's that guy.
That is Wunder.
Wunder's the guy who's like, this week you're working in the sewer, Wunder. And Wunder's like, all right, I'm the sewer boy. Like, I'll be up here playing my blind pick Ornn against, you know, Camille, just being miserable.
Yeah.
You know?
Sometimes he gets like teased that he's going to be a Hextech Innovation Jace player where they're going to play topside and he gets that pot. But then other times he goes down to the underground again. He's back on his horn, you know, he blows his horn.
Yeah. That's the Wunder life. That said, not our MVP. It's going to be none other than Malrang this week. We'll see who gets it next week. I'll do another drawing for Malrang. I owe a drawing for El Yoya from the previous week. You might owe a drawing. I might make you do that because I wasn't even here, bro.
The thing
you might owe a bad paint drawing.
I can't draw. Man, I'm going to do him dirty. Bro, like my drawing.
Have you seen my drawings? They're trash. You just literally take a picture from the Flickr account of El Yoya and you just try your best to mirror that. You should use that as reference and go. And if it's awful, it's better content.
When I was in school, I would always, the only things I drew were stickman fights. Did you ever draw stickman fights? Like you took one whole page and you started with one stickman shooting like a bullet at someone, and then you just like someone's parachuting in a plane over the top. There's a bomb, you know, like that. The huge stickman fights.
I was so into StarCraft as a kid, and not like good at StarCraft, competitive esports StarCraft. Like I played with cheats and I just built a lot of siege tanks and I had a great time. I was like 8, 9. We would in school take entire sheets of paper and draw like sideways, like imagine like a 2D platformer, but StarCraft, like perspective of like a big StarCraft armies fighting each other. And that was like my entire 4th and 5th grade experience, maybe 3rd and 4th grade experience.
And then growing up, when I got to like the higher grades, my friend brought in his laptop all the time, and he would build like a rocket of like 50,000 blocks, and it would take him like 3 weeks, and we would just sit there watching him do it the whole day.
Dang.
Good times.
Good times. Hard to go back to those times. It's like there's no closer friendships than this.
My best friend was like a programming hacker at the age of 14. Don't even ask. And he was like hacking into the computing database and like shutting down computers, setting up internal messaging systems, like sending bat files to every computer so we didn't have to do work. Like this guy was a psycho, man. I loved him.
Yeah. Poor school tech support. You're like, you have no money. In America, I don't know what it's like anywhere else. In America, it's like you have no money and you're competing against kids who have infinite time to do YouTube tutorials on technology that you don't even know about yet. Like we had CS on every computer. We had StarCraft on every computer in high school. And they were like, games are banned. They had proxies, or like we had proxies to block whatever they were trying to block so we could go to like Quick Games or whatever the hell I don't know the website games websites were back in the day. That was
sick.
Addictinggames.com, maybe it's the one I was called thinking of. Anyway,
mini games,
school,
mini clip, whatever it's called.
Good times, you know, it's a vibe. That said, what might not be a good time for G2 is the Vitality series, because I'm inclined to agree with Trymbi. How do you feel about that one, Caedrel? Do you think I just think Vitality are going to win here? What's your read?
Wow, it's a really hard matchup to talk about because I feel like they have similar play styles, and like you think of it, Alphari versus Broken Blade, top lane is going to be a big point of contention for both teams. Perks versus Caps, I think they've shown pretty similar ways that they want to play the game. I think if you look at jungle, it's also like these junglers have played against each other for so long. Like Yankel Selfmade have played against each other so many times. It's fun. It's a fun matchup on a narrative wise because you have like Yankels versus Perks, Caps and Yankels versus Perks, who now has Selfmade from Fnatic, which is when G2 took them out and all that stuff. Like mid jungle's fun for narrative. Bot lane I think will be the lowest, like the least impact kind of like area of focus for both these teams. I think it will be a very close series. Whoever wins this series obviously is going to have insane bragging rights. Either Perks is knocking out Yankel's Caps or Yankel's Caps is knocking out Perks. So it's like, it's going to be banter central. I'm sure of that in-game and out-of-game. Even when we were watching the G2 Fnatic game, I remember I was casting it. I looked at the pre-game lobby chat, like Wunder is spamming burger emojis like in the chat. He's like spamming them, like, you know, the Windows dot button where you can get emotes, just spamming burgers and like bacon and like flipping emotes like all in the lobby chat. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of banter. I really don't know. I feel like it's going to be a 3-2 series either way.
I'm going 3-1 Vitality, and let me tell you why. I think that there are very few teams right now that feel like 5-player teams where like all 5 players are a big carry threat, and I think Vitality is one of them. And I think Labrov is on the lower end of that, most certainly. But I think in this matchup particularly, up until game 4, game 5 of that Vitality Excel series, I probably would have predicted G2 or a close series like you're predicting. But what Carzzy did with a lead on Aphelios is obliterate Excel. Like, he solo killed Patrick. He did a ton of work. And we didn't get that all series. I'm not going to lie. That was like, ooh, damn. That's like Carzzy coming back. That's like big performance Carzzy. But then I saw what Flacket did when he had advantages in team fights. And I was like, generally kind of underwhelmed. And we talked about this. He wasn't the best at positioning in team fights. He did have great laning phases. I'm not saying Flacket played terribly. I just think on a team fighting level, like, I would take Carzzy every time. And similarly, Labrov, Targamas, I think they're comparable. And I think Alphari Broken Blade is very Alphari favored. Because Broken Blade, yes, he has these niche counter picks, and maybe they're going to get him something. But Alphari, outside of the Jax game, which was fine, and obviously the Aurelia game where they kind of just sprinted it, was a friggin' monster. The dude was unleashed. And you know what? Like, Broken Blade is a better top laner, I expect, than Finn was in that series. But that said, like, I just look at this just individual matchup wise, which is obviously a little biased. Like, draft is going to change things in general, but like Vitality feel to me like a complete picture. Whereas G2, it's like, I think kind of like Trymbi said, it's Caps, Jankos are your consistent factors. Broken Blade is going to sometimes have his pop off. He's going to sometimes get his niche counter picks. And I feel like Flacket and Targamas, even though they're super solid laners, and I think Targamas is a solid support, like the team fighting thing isn't there yet. And the amount of times that Vitality just won a clutch team fight to take a game back from Excel, it was admittedly like 2 times, but that's a lot in the context of a series. You know what I mean? And I have not really seen that as much from G2. And so that's the thing that, to me, that whole rambling thing is kind of why I feel like this is a 3-1, or I don't want to say 3-0, that feels disrespectful to G2, but like a 3-1 to Vitality. I think Vitality are the clear favorites for me.
I think it's going to come down so much to draft. There's 2 things that I'm looking at. Number 1 is, will G2 target jungle? Like, will they target self-made? Will they target like an Olaf ban on blue side and first pick Volibear? Something like this. If they target jungle, I think they are going to free themselves up a lot because I think both these players on Lee Sin had poor performances. Can they play Lee Sin? Yeah, of course they can play Lee Sin. They're both insanely good at Lee Sin. But just in the context of how the meta is and how the series are playing out, I feel like you see champions evolve throughout a series and throughout a meta and throughout the playoffs. For example, Corki is evolved in the bottom tier of the bracket. LeBlanc's evolved in the top side of the bracket. Volibear, Jarvan seems to be like where junglers are leaning towards. I think if G2 target jungle, they free themselves up a lot. And I also think Vitality swaying to a different playstyle of like, oh, let's play Yasuo Diana, or let's play Lucian mid, or let's play like early game focus, like I'll get a lead in roam, like Gali or something, where I push and move around the map. I feel like if Vitality falls into this, I feel like they might lose, because G2 are just probably going to be better at that, because that's what they've done the whole series, the whole split long, is like pick Ryze, pick TF, pick something that goes top, or Sylas or something that can move. So if they stick to like mage scaling on perks, like, I don't know, Orianna and Corki seem to be working out pretty well, or even bust out things like Azir Victor, I think Vitality will be favored. If that ticks out and they don't get targeted on jungle, if they do sway to early game and they do get targeted on jungle, I feel like G2 is going to take the series. So those are the 2 things that I'll look at when I watch this best of 5. Yeah, I can't really make predictions. I think it's so hard for me.
And this is like, I'm trusting my gut on this one. I think it can be tough. I think the other big factor that I would look at is Caps, because I think that he spent the entire Fnatic series just trying to neutralize Humanoid. And I think that Perks is not Humanoid. I think Humanoid is him and Larson are probably fighting for who's the best, and I think Humanoid is the best. Some of that is because we know how much of an impact he has outside of just individual performance, but like Caps and Perks are like trailing a bit there, but I think there's a world where it's not just going to be give one guy LeBlanc and counterpick LeBlanc the entire series. Like, this is going to be a much more dynamic mid lane matchup, and I think there's a world where Caps can build big advantages in the mid lane, especially if Jankos has the right jungle pick. So that's the one caveat that I'll give. If this game is going to be a G2 win, I think some of it's going to naturally come from Caps Jankos, but I think it's going to be a lot more about them setting up Caps for success rather than like roaming and supporting Broken Blade or supporting Flacket, because I think that strategy can fall apart pretty easily in team fights.
Okay, I feel like I'm going to go for G2. I think 3-2 to G2. But I think that the one thing we do mutually agree on is whoever wins this series is probably going to the loser bracket finals, and like Misfits is probably going to lose to them, whoever wins this series.
Yeah. Well, and this is just like something I've been kicking around, but this idea of like complete teams where like 5 out of 5 players are like able to perform. And I just think Misfits are the least complete team, right? Like I trust Neon and VTO to perform. I think anyone else on Misfits can perform, absolutely. But like those are the two people I trust to perform. And if you're at 2 out of 5 in a playoffs best of 5 against a G2 or against literally any of these teams, it just feels pretty impossible, because maybe in a best of 1 you can get away with it, but like your draft win conditions, if your read is the same as mine, if you're Misfits and you're like, these are the 2 players we need to set up for success, if whoever they're playing is like, these are the 2 players that they have to success, if all those reads are the same on both sides, it's just so easy to draft around. Like you're coming in at such a massive disadvantage.
Yeah, and what I will say is like another reason why I went for G2 is because I feel like Fnatic and Rogue are clearly the best 2 teams we have in the league right now. Like Fnatic and Rogue are so good. I feel like even though the series was 3-1 to Fnatic and they were definitely the better team, G2 was kind of going toe-to-toe with them. Like they were able to match what Fnatic was doing a lot of the time. Whether they were cross-mapping, like Game 4 was a good example where the game was just so even for so long. And even when the game wasn't even, like it came down to a play which was even. Like it was a dragon fight where it was a 5v5 or a 4v4 where Fnatic just outplayed them and won. And yes, they outplayed them, but the fact that G2 was actually able to match the play was just good overall. So it's a good sign going into the games against Vitality, which I think their series versus XL was quite messy barring game 4 and 5. So I think Rogue and Fnatic are probably going to be the winners of the split. I feel like that series won't decide, of course, because there will be a rematch, but like those are probably going to be our champions. But I think G2 will be the team to make it to the loser bracket final to face the loser of the upper bracket finals.
I can see it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Rogue Fnatic. I think that there are 2 gigantic factors in this series, actually. There's kind of just one role, and I'm just looking at jungle. I don't know how you're feeling, but I'm really looking at jungle because I think that we've talked about Malrang. We know what his comfort picks are. We know that it's predictable. That hasn't stopped it from being super effective. And I want to see what Fnatic are going to do to it. And similarly, Razork has been the worst performing member on Fnatic. I don't think that that's a based take or a bold take. And I'm wondering, even though he did have some good games in the series, I'm not trying to take away from him. He's had a solid season, but on a team of superstars, he's the one that's kind of lagging behind a little bit. I'm curious if that ends up being the X factor in the series, and it's kind of where I'm naturally looking, because everywhere else it's like there can be some differences. They can match back and forth, and don't get me wrong, like if most of these people get fed, they will run away with the game. Like last time these 2 teams played each other, it was like Upset got 2 kills in like a really bizarre dragon fight, and then just completely took over the game as Aphelios. Just absolutely blasted it. I think that was the same game that Razork admittedly whipped a bunch of Diana ults, but like they still got there in the end. So, but that's where I'm looking. I don't know. What's your focus? What do you think about this game?
I mean, every role is going to be so important. Like Auto Wunder is probably, as much as I say it, maybe Auto Wunder is probably the least important or the least impactful or like the least on paper impactful role because of the amount of explosivity in bot lane that both these teams have and like mid. I'm favoring Fnatic in this series. I feel like there's 2 things I saw that Fnatic did in their series versus G2. Number 1, they were so patient. Like I've never seen Fnatic be this patient in my life. Like they would get leads, they would wait for dragons, they wouldn't oversiege, they would like use their Nash properly and not like overdive even without Nash or try to siege or anything like this crazy. And number 2, their mid game is just so much cleaner than it ever was. I feel like their mid game just looks insane. I mean, Humanoid, I don't know I know Humanoid is now like the voice of their mid game, but I don't know how much he fluctuates based on what champion he's on. For example, if I'm playing LeBlanc as a mid laner, from my experience, very hard to dictate. It's very easy to dictate the pace of the game because I can just push out a side, move mid and one-shot someone or like look for plays on my own. If I'm playing Victor, for example, I need my team to be the ones to like take charge of where to be and what to do because I'm just a backline scaling mage, right? If it doesn't fluctuate depending on his champion, then perfect. But I feel like I'm kind of favoring Fnatic for those 2 reasons. I think after their series versus G2, I feel like they are the best team we have in the league. But I feel like it will also be extremely meta dependent and extremely like draft dependent again, because I feel like when teams, two teams are so close, I keep saying I feel like so many times. I think when both teams are so evenly matched, draft is so important, and adaptability and flexibility. Like, is Rogue just gonna ban LeBlanc for the entire series? Probably. So what else has Fnatic got right?
Yeah. I think that what makes this series incredibly, incredibly exciting is that it feels to us in both series, like Rogue weren't really pushed to show a lot. And we heard from Trymbi that also maybe they didn't have the best read. They weren't as ready with Zeri as they needed to be. And we didn't get to talk to Fnatic this week, but we're pretty sure that Fnatic have also not shown us the full depth of their champion pool. And that is very, very exciting for this series because Rogue were considered for most of the regular season, hands down, the best drafting team. A lot of their wins were credited to how good their drafts were. And obviously G2 came to play as well in this playoffs. They had a lot of strategies ready for LeBlanc. I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to do against Vitality, what strategies they're going to have ready. But these are two teams who have not shown us a ton in draft with hugely explosive players. And I think it's going to slap. That said, I'm inclined to agree with you. As much as Razork has not been the strongest performer, I think Hylissang is so damn good. I think Upset is clearly the best AD carry in our league. And Humanoid Larson can be tight. It can be close. Top lane can be tight and close. Jungle can be tight and close. But like, so much comes down to draft, and I've just seen more from Humanoid this season. That doesn't mean that Larson doesn't have the potential. That doesn't mean that Larson isn't, an outstanding player. He's had a really good season, but like, Humanoid has been absolutely everywhere this season. He has done absolutely everything. And I think when it comes down to like 3 mid lane bans, like I just trust, which is a weird thing to say because I'm so used to Humanoid being the guy who just dies all the time. But in this new world of Fnatic Humanoid, I believe in Humanoid. Like this man makes wins happen. Like him and Hylissang are two of the clutchest players we have in the league. And it's just, I cannot count that out. And I certainly am ready to be wrong. I would love to see Rogue rise to that best of 5 potential. We always talk about like maybe they have, maybe they don't. But this is a Fnatic win for me.
Agreed. I'm on the same page, buddy.
Nailed it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, looks like our time is running out. Remember, you can tune in at 6 p.m. Berlin time. I can't really remember if it's CET or CEST, so I'm just going to say Berlin time. You guys can figure that out. CET, thank you. On Friday, that's going to be our first lower bracket matchup, G2 versus Vitality. Saturday will be Rogue versus Fnatic. Misfits will be the winner of the Friday match. So exciting. It's going to be tight. It's going to be an explosive series of best of 5s. I hope Misfits can show us more. If you're a Misfits fan, you're like, damn, these guys are pessimistic. Hope that we're wrong. I hope that we're wrong. I hope we get sick 15-game weekend. Caedrel's casting every single day. That's the only thing that I know for sure. What day I'm casting with him, I don't know. This man is an absolute unit. He never stops. He's an endless content machine. Twitch.tv/Caedrel. Thanks to everybody who showed up to listen. Good to be back. Thanks to Trymbi for coming on the show. And you have to draw the El Yo-Yo picture. I'll draw another Malrang picture.
Okay, I'll do it.
And we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys this weekend and next week.
Bye-bye.